So I have these huge paper clips. So you can do like where one flap is over, and then you use the paper clip to hold it in place instead of gluing it down or having a belly band. And you have a decoration on each side, you pull it off and you can still see what's underneath. I think I'm gonna use blue because there's just a little bit of blue floating around. So it's a good color to kind of highlight. I'm gonna cut this down so that I have a thinner pull through for those. It's a really small eyelet. This tuck is going to be glued down, so we don't want to make it too bulky, but just give it a little bit of extra decoration coming off of the corner, so when it's glued in you have a little bit of a flap coming off of it. And I think, do I want it up here? Because I have so much on the bottom. I think I could put it just, yeah, like kind of in the corner here. That's what I'm gonna do. And I will glue just 3 sides of it, even though I might not put a tuck in the bigger flap. It gives me the ability to do that if I choose to later. And notice I'm not tying this yet. I'm going to put it in and then tie it so I don't put anything bulky behind it. I want it to lay flat. And then I can tie it any way I want to once it's in there. Oh, we gotta glue this in. So this one, you're probably not gonna put anything behind it because it is a thinner paper. It'll tear pretty easy, so I just glue the whole thing down. And I'm just gonna center it as best I can anyway. There we go. Very cool. I like it so far. We have our flap out, pages. I feel like something should go here. And maybe this is where I can put a belly band and have a tuck like one of these. Yeah, I think that's what I'll do. Or we could pin it. I could do similar to what I did earlier. I have a different version or a different way to clip it on. So we could clip it like this. And you could put tassels on the end of this. And then when it folds in and you have your book, it just has a little flip there. And that doesn't distract too much from the overall pages. Okay, so let's look at this next one. We have our pages. I think that might be too bulky for there. Would be too much to have it here. Maybe. Yeah, we're gonna keep it simple. That opens. This looks pretty good together. This one, we could have it open up. That looks good. Then we open this, looks good. We have just a blank. We could just leave this blank so that people can write in it, or you could put a little tuck that actually matches the colors, so I like it. And then this is a matchbook style, so you can open it up, have some writing. You could put some, there's a little inspirational thing in there. We have a little flap here. Do we need anything else? We have this extra paper. We could do something like this, then we have room for a tuck later. I have some different cute tucks that would work. And then I don't know if we'll want anything here or not. I do have, that doesn't really match. I don't know if I really like these colors with kind of don't, it doesn't really match. So I think I'm going to actually take some of this out, and then we can put something in there that kind of goes with it a little bit better. And then we could put a belly band on here, or I could loop something, put a punch in there so this rotates. That's always fun. If you need to stitch something because it needs more security, sometimes it's just the glue itself isn't going to be enough, or maybe it's just a decoration that you want to add more on. I love that. That's fun. I'm going to try to even these out when I put this on. Again, I'm going to just do 3 sides in case later someone wants to make it or use it as a tuck, even though I probably won't put anything there. I mean, these always end up gifted to somebody, or I've sold a few, but mostly it's just gifts. All right, we're going to glue this one down. This one I might have to rub down a little bit better to get it to stick. This was one I did early on. I love incorporating pictures in, and then this one tucks like that to close it. And we're going to do a belly band. I have so much glue on my hands right now. All right, I'm going to put it kind of in a little bit, not centered. Gotta find my line here. Okay, I gotta let this dry a little bit before I flip through anymore. So if this is in here, it's got a little bit of a dangle. It could work. We're gonna put a pocket here somewhere, but I have to cut this down. I think I'm just going to hand cut it because no one's gonna see what's on the inside. Maybe I'll put it like this. Yeah, just for the fun of it, I'm going to do that. I'm gonna do 2 sides and then see where I can glue down that other edge. Won't be able to fit things as thickly in because I think I'm going to glue along the edge, but I'm also going to glue along the torn part, so you won't actually be able to tuck it as thick, but it does give it a very cool look if you like that sort of thing. I like the injured paper look. Now you could put a notch in there, or we have these little tag ends. We could put one of these on there, so it makes it easier to get papers in there. Sometimes it's hard to find the edge, so you could slide one of these down, and then when you want to open it, it gives you something to grab to slide your tuck in. Let's see if there's any other places we want to put tabs. Maybe some tabs here. I have tabs with eyelets in them and then just plain ones, so we could add a little bit of lace to this like we did with the other, that tuck, or what is it, like a tuck pocket. Now trying to make string out of lace can be a little bit tricky, but I like it more than I like regular like the thinner ribbon that you would put in here. It just looks so boring. I like the tattered lace look. So you could just tie this in a knot, or you could stitch it if you were feeling enthusiastic. I don't think I'm actually going to stitch anything. I feel like this stuff has a lot of detail because when I did the videos on them, I really spent some time making them detailed, so there's less need for all that extra stuff. So now we can put a tab on here, and it has some lace to add decoration, sort of. I'm going to cut this end off. All right, I don't think we could fit any more in there. We could put some more tabs if we wanted to add some decorations to the edges. We could put some tabs up here. So when we open it up, you have to put a little bit of a bend in it. Okay, that's not too bad. I do have to put some string on it. I'll probably trim these laces down once it's all put together. So here's our cover, and we stitch these in. It's going to be pretty thick. Look at that. So when you add all those little details in, man, does it beef it up. And I may add some lace over this because I feel like it's too bright. When inside we kind of used muted pinks, so I think I'm going to find something that kind of brings those colors back, but I'll worry about it after it's bound in case I need to do anything there. Now we're going to bind the book together. So we need our 2 edges for gluing in when we're done. Okay, we're going to bind our signatures into our piece of cardstock that we cut earlier. So we're going to need the cardstock, something to punch holes with, a needle that's big enough to hold the thick waxed thread, some color of waxed thread. If you have regular thread without the wax, like maybe a friendship bracelet style thread, it still can be used, but you have to knot it into square knots to make sure it doesn't slip and then glue it. Where with waxed thread, it stays where you put it. The wax holds it in place as you stitch between the different holes in your signatures. So we have our thread, we have our needle. I also have this tool. If you have the opportunity to get one and you're going to bind books often enough, it is worth the investment. There's a little bit of glue in there. It has a V in it where you put the signature crease down in it, and then you put this in the center and it squishes it down for puncturing the holes. It gives you kind of a basic measurement that you can use to find like the center, put your holes in, and then it just makes it easier to hold it in place, to get the holes the way you want it to go. But you can just measure along the spine and puncture the holes. It's just a little bit more time consuming and a little bit more finicky. We also need clips for holding the pages together when we are stitching, because we want to keep the central, we want to keep that fold on all the papers to stay in place as we do things. And because all of our pages are different lengths, it can be hard to get it to stay in place where you want it to. So if we line it up and then pin it, our life is a lot easier. So I have these clips. I also have these big paper clips, which work wonders for the shorter pages. It just depends on what you're comfortable using. I'm going to use these long paper clips to line up my folds, and it's no easy task. I need to make sure that they're far enough out that they don't interfere with me punching the holes. And they do shift on you, so it's one of those things you wouldn't think you'd have to spend that much time on it, but you do. I'm going to take these clips off because that's not helping. And I'm keeping it folded while I pin it in, because really where things line up changes from when it's flat to when it's folded, because they need different thicknesses for their folds depending on how deep they are in the signature. Now, this might seem an excess of paper clips to do this, but really it saves you so much heartache later to just have it in place and not move on you. So there's one. I'm going to do the other one. We'll do this sort of assembly line style. One time I put it all together and I ended up stitching the pages in upside down on one side. Oh, what a nightmare. And I had to turn around and try to fix it. I mean, it was after it was all glued in I realized my mistake. I was not impressed with myself. So you can see I go back and make sure my folds all line up, and I'm going to do another one. I don't know what I'll do when I run out of these. Well, I mean, I'll buy more, but I depend on these large paper clips for so much, and you can't just buy them anywhere around here. You have to order them. Okay. Beautiful. I'm going to move this out of the way. And we're going to do one signature at a time. Now, I'm going to use this to measure, but for you, you can use a ruler. The key is that you're going to make 5 holes. You want to find your center. So first I have to figure out how I'm going to do it towards this way. Let's see, I'm thinking about how you're going to be looking at it. I'm going to turn it this way. Okay. So I'm going to measure it from the top. And we have 34 centimeters. So the middle is going to be 17. So I'm going to put a hole in 17 and go all the way through, wiggle it around. If you're doing it by hand, you put a dot there and you can punch it through in the air. Now, I don't want to go all the way to the end. So a lot of times I'll like count by 5, put a hole, and then count by 5 and put a hole. This makes it easier too when you do the next book, that you don't have to worry about them. As long as you find the center, you don't have to. Oops, did I do that right? No, but that's okay. So you can see where I put the holes, and we're going to go back through and make the holes bigger so they're easy to find when we're stitching. And I didn't do this perfectly. So you can see I'm just pushing it until I make them thick. So they're easy to stitch through and easy to find. This one I just didn't really line up quite right, but that's okay. It was pretty close. And then this one doesn't go through that material, but that's okay. So this gives 5 holes. You can do it any way you want to. You can split it up and try to get it the same distance. I just go for 5 holes coming from the center, and that will be sturdy enough for you to flip through the pages once it's stitched in. Now I'm going to do the same thing with the second one. I'm using this to squash it down where the crease is, and that helps keep them all in line. Got a lot going on in this one. So again, it's 34 centimeters, so I'm going to go 17. And I'm going to do the same thing with this one. I'm going to count up 5. And then count up 5 more. And go back to the middle and count down 5. As long as you do the same thing on both sides, you're okay. Okay, now this is going to be a little harder to see the holes because it's through white lace, but they're still there. Is that it? Yes. That one was a little tough to see. There we go. Alright, now it should be easier to find the holes for stitching. So we also need to put our holes in this. So I think, how do I want to do this? I might get my creaser out again. So when I put these folds in, I didn't think about making my seams for stitching, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to go in, so I have my seam here. I'm going to count in 3. 1, 2, 3, make a line, and from here I'm going to count in 3. 1, 2, 3, and we're going to use those for stitching in. Now, as long as you try to make them even, sometimes people do 3 signatures and kind of do less pages, so they can kind of have that center one and then the 2 on each side. But however you do it, just try to be the same distance away from the edge for both of them. So I'll put this away again. Since I didn't put the creases in the binding cardboard at first, I am just pinning these together so that I can put them in now. So I have one hole there. This one's easy to find the holes. I'm going to go upwards also. And last one. So that's that one. I'm going to stitch this one first before I put holes in the other one. And that's just so that it doesn't shift, I don't lose what I've done. So when you're measuring out how much waxed string, you want to do the length of your book times 3. 2, 3, and that gives you a little bit left over for doing the stitching. You can always cut it down afterwards, but you won't run out because you're kind of giving some leeway for the bulkiness of the pages. One thing about using waxed thread is it's a lot easier to thread a needle when you can pinch the wax. Now you don't need to put a knot on this or anything because we're going to leave a big tail. So we're going in and out through the center. Now this type of stitching, we're going to have the knot be in the middle of the book and coming out instead of having to hide it. And then you can go through this top hole. Okay, go through the top hole. And it's going to seem a little uneven, but we're going to go in the middle between these two and come back out again. And with wax thread, it will feel like it sticks, so it keeps you from leaving it loose or having things dangle in weird places. So you just got to keep an eye on that. Now I'm going in through the end and out through that, what is that, the 4th one down. So now there's string in every hole. And I'm going to go back through this exit or entrance, however you want to say. And I've managed to put string that overlaps in the center section. And I'm going to tie my knot with one string from on each side of that overlapping string. So when I tie the knot, it's going to hold all those strings in place. So you want to make sure that you have it tight on the back and the front. And it doesn't matter what the back looks like, it only matters what the front looks like, because the back is going to be glued in to the book. So don't worry about that. So there's one signature stitched in. Now I'm going to actually pin this whole signature together to keep it out of my way so I can do the next one. Hopefully I don't wreck this weaving here. There. Okay, so now we're going to put our holes in this part. So again, I need to line up the creases. Oh, and make sure you're going in the right direction. So I gotta look to make sure, yeah. So this down. Okay. I have done it wrong before, so I'm gonna line up my folds and use paper clips. Now, if you're on top of it, you could just punch these holes when you go to put your holes in the rest of your pages. I just didn't add that piece. Okay. So we have it pinned. And I'm going to keep it bent. Hopefully you can still see that. Now this one is a little harder to see the holes, but I'm going to do the best I can. Okay, so we have 5 holes. They don't completely line up, but the pages do. So when we put it together, that's what matters. Now we're going to stitch this side in. So the same thing, we're going to take the length of the book times 3. 1, 2, 3. And cut that off. And we're going to go in through the center again. Make sure you leave a tail. You can go down to the bottom on one side, then up to the 4th hole. Then we go to the top hole. And bring it down to this hole here. So we're just making sure that the string goes through every hole at least once, and then we bring it back through the middle to be able to tie it off. Oops. I gotta make sure that I have one string on each side, so when I pull it up, I'm going to actually put this underneath, because when I tie it off I have to tie it around those strings. I'm going to make sure it's tight on both sides, and that if you can get your hands on some wax string, that's the way to go, because it really does stay where you put it. And make sure you do a box knot, and a box knot is just where you tie over under and then you reverse the order. So basically you're doing the reverse the second time. It's a little hard to change the angle. Alright, I'm going to voice over this kind of final touches because we're going to do some fast forwarding. In other words, this video will take forever. So I glued down the spine by first putting glue on the center piece so that I can push it really deep down into
the spine. If you try to glue the whole thing at once, you might end up with a front and back that won't close properly. So it's important to start in the center, really get it to harden, and then you can glue your flaps in while you're moving the front cover and the back cover. So I just used some Fabri-Tac because I have a mix of paper and fabric. I find that works the best. I rub it down so that it isn't super thick, and then put pressure into the spine. I'm doing my best to show you from an angle so you can see what I'm doing. So you're lining it up with the sort of the edge where the front and back curve up, and you push it down into that crease so that it can be secure when the book is being opened and closed. After you put the glue down on the edges, make sure you rub it so that it is as thin as possible so you don't have glue pushing out onto the cover. And I make sure that I bend the cover as I'm flattening it so that the cover will open and close. You have to find that happy medium. If you leave it open while you're gluing it, then shutting it will be a problem. And as you have the front and back partially closed when you're putting pressure on the binding, make sure you push it down into that crease. It's really important that it has that extra paper in there to be able to bend. Now that the binding is secure, we're going to put our paper over our covers. We cut these earlier, so you have to dig them out of the pile of stuff. And I don't know why I always say we. I don't know if anybody's doing the same project with me or not, but if you are, join me in gluing down the paper. I'm going to rub this flat also, just like everything else, so that it doesn't have lumps. This will really show if you don't smush that glue down. I'll skip over some of the more boring parts here and fast forward it. So we're going to glue down the paper on each side, making sure you rub it down flat and work out any lumps of the glue. Make sure you pay attention to top and bottom, because if you have any writing or anything like that, this is the time you might make the mistake because you've flipped the book up and down so many times. I guess when I fast forward it, I don't chop as much of the sort of busyness that I do. So there might be a little bit of extra. I'm going to figure out what I'm doing. I'm going to put 2 holes in the book cover so that I can run lace through it and use this to close and tie off the book. So I use, what do they call it, a croca file or something like that. I pop holes with it, and you can also put eyelets in if you're feeling fancy. I generally put eyelets in if the book cover is thin enough because it just gives it a finished look. I like to use portions of lace to make my tie arounds because it fits better in the eyelets. Every once in a while I can find a really fine, this one is really thin, so you can kind of bunch it up and get it through the eyelet. But a lot of laces are just too bulky, so I cut them into maybe 4s, and then I can fit them in, and it gives it a grungy look that I like. We get a little glimpse now of what the book will look like when it's done. I still want to add some stuff to the binding because it's a bit bright for me. I like the sort of grungy look. I think with some lace on the binding and a few finishing touches inside, we'll be good to go. I found a wider lace that will cover up this bright pink, I think it mutes it just enough to blend it in with the rest of the book. So I am gluing it on and trimming it up so that it has a kind of rough edge, and that pretty much finishes our outside of the book. Now I just need to put some finishing touches on the inside. I still have a collection of like tucks, things made from like postcards and scrap paper to fill in these little tuck spots. We have an envelope to fill. There's some belly bands in there that are empty, and I just want to do the last couple pieces so you can see what it looks like when you really actually finish a book, because a lot of times the videos are just getting the pages in and you don't get to really see all the yumminess, which is my favorite part. I don't know if you're recognizing any of these projects from previous videos. There's a few that I've done on my own, but for the most part I tried to incorporate all the things that I did in like Mass Makes, and a few from classes I've taken myself. With each little detail that I'm adding in, you can really start to see it come together. I love looking at a finished junk journal. It takes so many hours for all the little things, but they're so beautiful when they're done. I have like boxes of things I've made in Mass Makes to put into books to finish them off, because I like to just get into one project, like when I make like index card art, I'll make maybe 40 in a row. I'm kind of in the groove, and then I set them aside. They're all a little bit different because they're all little mini works of art, and I love finding old pictures and sayings that go with them, or taking vintage cards and adding bling to them, because when you put them in, I mean, look at all this yummy goodness. It's so beautiful. Well, I appreciate you joining me today, and I hope you like how it turned out. If you've been along for the journey, you got to see all what it looks like when you put it all together. Well, thanks, and hope I see you again.